Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grip Locked Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter. I'm normally joined by Trevor, but right now we're on the road. We're at Idlewild in Burlington, Kentucky, so I'm joined by Brodie instead. We'll hopefully have Trevor back next week. We're in a little bit of a weird situation here. We got the hotel room. We got lamps all around us, but I still think it's a little bit too dark, and we're missing a piece to my boom arm, so I'm having to go handheld here, but regardless, we're getting this taken care of, and we're getting this out.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to talk about a few different things here, but first off, this is your first time out at this course, at this event. What do you think of it? What do you think of the course, and what is your game plan going to the event?
Yeah, I think, coming into this tournament, there's obviously been a lot of talk and chatter about it. A lot of people have said, wait until you see Idlewild. After playing some of the courses I've previously played, this is definitely a completely different ball game. I think Toboggan had maybe 1-2 holes that have fairly tight gaps. But this course out here, other than a handful of holes, you're having to hit really specific lines. And then even when you do hit those specific lines, your next shot on a lot of them are pretty tricky. So I am actually happy that I did get to play Vinhorst before this course, because I feel like that made it less of a shock. I don't think, if you guys haven't watched that, or if you're listening to the podcast, make sure you go to Foundation's YouTube channel and check out the footage from that tournament, because if you haven't, I don't think you realize how difficult of a course that was.
Yeah.
Where the winner would end up shooting? Would Paul end up shooting for 2 rounds?
Like 10 or 11 under, I believe.
Something just over double digits.
There was only 2 players under par for the whole event.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it was an insanely difficult course. So I'm happy that I was able to play that. I feel like also the course I was playing prior to coming out here was also a very difficult course. It's a little bit of a drive for me, but I think that's what I'm going to have to start doing, is playing courses that are more pro style in my area versus these like pitch and putt courses I have been playing. So coming out here, it wasn't as big of a shock that I think maybe some people were expecting. It's very difficult. Don't get me wrong. It's a very difficult course, but it's attackable. There's holes out there that I feel pretty confident that if I throw a good shot, I can make birdies. And I'm excited about the opportunity. Yeah.
One thing I noticed when I was playing with you, is your game's kind of developing into, you're throwing a lot more forehands off the tee.
Mm-hmm.
It might just be because it's a wooded course, but what is the reasoning for that at this specific course? Is it just trying to hit gaps, or is that just what you're feeling most comfortable with?
Yeah, I think prior to this tournament, from the Disc Golf Pro Tour side, I didn't have really a forehand with drivers. So fairway drivers or distance drivers, throwing a forehand was still very foreign to me, and I did not have the confidence where I would go out and I would throw, let's say I had 10 Zeus's, I would go throw and maybe like 2 of them were good, and then 4 were like adequate, and then the other 4 were like absolute trash. Just nose up, hyzer, straight right. And there was a lot of holes that at Toboggan that I feel like the forehand was the play, and I struggled on some of those holes just confidence-wise. But I've been really, really working on my forehand since then. The tournament that I just played in Dallas had a lot of holes that I was throwing forehand drivers with and hitting lines with. And then the course, obviously, I was practicing prior to coming out here was also another course that required a lot of forehand drivers. So, I feel like right now I don't really have like the turnover forehand yet for like max distance. But if I can throw, I have a kind of a beat-in Zeus a little bit that I can throw on a little bit of a hyzer, and it kind of flips up just a little bit for me. And I can get decent distance out of that. I can get anywhere from 360 to about 380 feet on a big bomb. And I think a lot of these holes really require 325 to 350. If you can get that distance on some of these holes, you'll have like a nice, easy little shot in that you can just carve with a zone or something like that, or even a putter essentially with a backhand. So I think for me, I've made the switch of where before throwing like the turnover backhand shots wasn't really my cup of tea. That's the exact that like throw never happens in ultimate. You never especially power shots. You're not really ever throwing a backhand like that. So that shot just is the least comfortable for me. And I felt like I always really was forcing that shot a lot. And playing with Paul too, who has probably, I think it's safe to say he has the best backhand in disc golf.
Yeah, I don't know who would top him.
Yeah. So playing with him, he is going to go to that backhand every time if he can. He really only is going to throw forehand when that is the perfect shot, right? And the backhand doesn't work. So playing with him, you see him constantly throwing all these backhands. And I was trying to do the same thing where now I feel like, I'm attacking a hole based on what I think my skill set is going to give me the best chance at getting birdie.
So do you think that that's from like this tournament leading up the first few practice rounds you played without Paul? Has that kind of changed your mentality to where you're having to look at a hole and say what's best for my game instead of having like what you were just saying, you see Paul, or if you're playing with Tristan Tanner or Emerson, where before were you finding that their game was kind of influencing your decisions and possibly hurting your game in a sense?
I mean, it's hard to play with Paul and see how successful he is and not think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But that is what works for him. And I need to start doing stuff that works for me. Now, obviously, I'm still watching and seeing what he's doing and trying to emulate certain things and get better at certain things for sure. But I need to do what I think is going to make me the most successful right now. And I think playing the course by myself. Now, obviously, I did a lot of I watched a lot of film coming into this, so I was pretty familiar with the holes. Now, they look different in person than they do on video, but I was watching a lot of guys like Kevin, a lot of guys like I'm trying to think who the other guy was. I'm blanking on his name.
Conrad's normally up there. But
It was Conrad, but he throws backhand. I'm trying to think of someone else that was in the finals. It was Calvin. He's a backhand player too. It was someone else, but kind of forehand dominant player. So whenever they stepped up to a hole and they were going with a forehand, those were the ones that I was kind of marking down on my notes. Like, see if the forehand, if you feel confident throwing that there. And yeah, when I went out to the practice round, I kind of could see what all the type of shots that they were doing, and then basically get to pick and choose once I was looking at it and throwing multiple shots, which one I felt the most confident one. And we talked earlier about like hole number 9, for example. That was a hole, and that's the hole that like Conrad had that nasty ace on. It's that little turnover backhand that he throws through the gap. It's only about 254 feet, but it's a very interesting line because you need something to go kind of straight left away from the basket and then kind of mid-flight start turning towards the basket. And for the first 2.5 rounds, I was trying to force a forehand and trying to just like, what disc? Maybe it's not the get freaky zone. Maybe it's this. And there was a couple that I got in the circle, but I just felt like a very delicate shot. And so today was the first day that I actually busted out my Fierce and just threw it on like a little baby hyzer, almost flat down the line, and it broke perfectly. And I was like, there it is. That's it. So I think sometimes you have to be able to change things up on the fly when it's not working, when something's not working for you. But for me, I think the big difference at this tournament I'm hoping for is the confidence level. Toboggan, there was multiple holes. I was stepping up. 17 is a good one. 15, 16, and 17. That stretch right there, never felt confident on the tee. All 3 days. Literally was like, I don't know where this is going. I didn't have any confidence. And Right now, I don't think there's a hole that I don't have. I don't feel confident in throwing the shot.
Wow. So is that just from preparation, or like what is exactly is it? That changed that confidence. We're only talking a week or two. What kind of clicked in the past few weeks that causes this difference going into this tournament versus going into D-Glow?
Yeah, so I think the biggest one first is I worked a lot between D-Glow and this tournament on my forehand and being confident in throwing, hyzer, flat, baby turnovers with drivers. And so now I feel like, yeah, maybe, I mean, you saw today there was a couple that were a little but my misses aren't nearly as bad as before, where I would literally just shank it straight right. So I feel confident in that, but then also I do think the preparation is huge. At Toboggan, we just played. So we would just play all 18 holes. Yeah, maybe we throw a couple shots here and there, and then we just play another 18 holes, and that was it. And I was like, I don't think that's the right way for me, at least for me, to practice. Like, I shouldn't be spending the same amount of time on a hole that I have dialed in on a hole that I don't have dialed in. Hole three at Toboggan was another hole that not once in my practice rounds, I think we did like 4, maybe 5 practice rounds out there, and I probably threw maybe 7 or 8 shots on that hole throughout those practice rounds. I think only like 1 out of those 7 or 8 was actually inbounds. So tournament time comes up. I mean, what are you thinking? Like,
you're like, I have a 1 in 8 shot.
I'm 1 in 8 of making this. So, for me, that was like hole 3. The first couple times I played hole 3 here at Idlewild, I didn't really have good shots at it. And, today, I grinded on it and threw probably 10 shots today. And so I felt like, okay, this is the disc, this is the line. And now I know as long as I execute it, it's going to be a good shot.
Yeah.
Where before at Toboggan, like, I'm walking up and I'm literally thinking, like, is this the right disc? What angle do I need to release this on? And, we had that a little bit on hole number 1 too with the wind situation. The disc that was working here at Idlewild, it's a huge par 4, like 684 feet, I think. It's close to 700.
Something.
Yeah, it's close to 700, I think. But plays downhill. The wind's normally at your back. And my first time playing it, I threw my Hades on a hyzer, flips over, and then, lands in circle 2. I throw the second Hades, flips over, lands in circle 2. And I was like, oh my gosh, this hole's easy. What the heck? And then the next time I play it, the wind is like gone. There's no wind. And I'm like, okay, I just throw the same disc. It never comes out. So it just flips over and then literally just rides straight right. And you're like, dude, you got to throw a different disc. So that's super helpful too, is playing in different wind conditions, or at least like continuing to remember, like, okay, wind is going to have a play. So just jotting down notes, like, I'm currently throwing the shot and it works right now with no wind. If there is going to be wind, I need to adjust. Yeah.
So taking notes, like what you were just saying, is that because that's something that I've seen a lot of players do, but I've also seen a lot of players not do. And that's something that's I've always been curious about that, because I always took notes. I liked not having to think during a tournament. I liked stepping up and knowing my bag well enough to know there's a tailwind now. So if I have a Zeus with no wind and there's a tailwind, I'm going crank, and if there's a headwind, I'm going force, type of a thing. But I always wrote notes. I don't think Paul takes notes. He just has played courses for so long that he just knows what shot to execute and knows his bag so well. But is the notes something that is translating over from golf for you? Is that something you did in golf? I've always seen players with their like detailed caddy books.
Caddy books, yeah.
Is that something from that, you think, or is it just, you don't know your bag well enough yet that you aren't confident in a tournament making those decisions on the fly?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you just said, like, the number 1 player in the world doesn't do it. So the argument of, like, I think everyone should do it, it's kind of tough to make that argument with the best player. But honestly, I do think if Paul had a caddy and did take notes and whatnot, or had his caddy like walk the course, there would be probably he probably over the course of a season might shave off a couple strokes, because his decision making is pretty solid. Like there's very few times where he makes a mistake decision making wise, but there might be a time or two where his caddy could have information like, hey, like one of the holes we were talking about, how the island, you could lay up short of the island and be in the circle. So if you have, instead of trying to throw a difficult upshot that might make it on the island and might not, if you had an upshot that you could 100% with certainty lay up short and still be in the circle, and even for Paul, his circle is probably like 38 feet,
where he's like consistent.
Yeah, 38 feet or so. So like, if I was his caddy, I would just give him that option. I'd be like, hey, if you don't feel 100% that you can land this on the island here, just throw it up right to that little spot right there, short of the island. OB's not in play at all, and you have an 38 footer for birdie.
Yeah.
And that could save him one stroke. Now, I think, especially for newer players, having a caddy and knowing the course and taking notes is huge. And I would almost probably the day, like Monday before tournament, like tournament week, I would most likely, if I had a caddy, would like walk the course with them, and we would just talk about stuff on the course, whether it's OB. I mean, today we didn't know OB was left of 16.
Yeah, down at near the island.
Exactly. That's something that in golf, caddies would actually, a lot of times they would go out without the player. So the player might be on the green putting, or might be on the driving range or whatever, and the caddy's walking the course, and he's taking down all those notes. He knows like when you're on 16, the par 5, when you're at that tree, like I don't even know the distance right now, but the caddy would know the distance from the tree to make OB, like to make it to that landing area, right?
I gotcha.
And just knowing that stuff of like, hey, it's 450 feet. Or if I'm short of that, hey, it's 510 feet. I don't think you should go for it, versus we're just kind of guessing. And a lot of times, a lot of these players are just kind of guessing at landing areas. And I think in a course like this, especially where you're going to it's impossible to practice all the scenarios that you're going to get out here. It's impossible. So you're going to get in situations where you have to figure out the best option. And if you guys, like a prime example is if you want to watch the FPO of last year, there was a really good battle between Paige and Kat coming down to the wire. They're tied even, they're whatever they were, they're tied going into 18. I believe both of them didn't have the best of drives, and Paige tries to make what looks to be like a pretty miraculous shot to get out. So if you don't know, if you're listening at home, hole 18 is basically a super narrow fairway with tons of trees. If you go left or right, you're dead. And then it's like probably 350 feet to get out into the opening.
Somewhere in that.
So it's about 350 feet, and then you're into a big, huge open field, and there's 2 trees down by the basket. But once you kind of get out into the field, you're fine. And then from the gap, like out into the field to the basket, can't be more than like 250 feet.
Something like that.
Right? So watching her play that hole, I learned a lot, because she tries to make a miraculous shot in trouble out. She tries to get out of the gap, and she ends up like turning it over, and it cut rolls or something, and she gets left, and now she's basically has to pitch out, or she can't get to the basket from there. Where if she would have just laid up 50 feet short of the gap and had like a 300-foot shot in, she would have definitely for sure been able to get a putt at par. Yeah. Right? And laying up to that spot would have been a lot easier than what she was doing. So you got to know where to throw your next shot to be able to attack. And that's going to be huge, I think, at this tournament, is when you are off the fairway and you're in positions that you've never been on, there's going to be times where you're like, I can't go to the green. So you need to figure out, okay, where is the best place for me to lay the next shot up?
Yeah, I think practicing this course has... I've played this course before. I've played this tournament before. But for some reason, this time around, practicing this course has brought up, in my mind, the question of why aren't there caddies in disc golf? Because there's been multiple times of... whether it be
I would love to pay someone to caddy for sure.
Whether it be you, Paul, Hannah, whoever I'm practicing with, there's so many times where there's a situation and they do it a few times, or like with you, you'd step up to a hole or step up to a shot and you just want to talk through it. Mm-hmm. And in a practice round, I feel like there's always players to bounce that off of. But then when you get into a tournament, it's weird for a player to have a caddy. And I know this event, caddies aren't allowed. Yeah. Because of COVID. But in day-to-day tournaments, you normally don't see a caddy. And if you do, it's either
just like
a friend, some random guy. I know Paul had Tompkins for a long time, but he didn't consult him much. It was more of a carry my bag, and he would ask him here or there. Like, should I go Avenger? Should I go Onyx? Or whatever, something like that. Do you think that the biggest part of why we don't see caddies in disc golf is the payout, that players can't really give it's 10% in golf, right? Like 10% to the caddy. Mm-hmm. Is it because of that?
I think there's a bonus too if you win. So like if you win, $1.8
who decides that? Is it between the player and the caddy?
Yeah, player and the caddy.
So some players might be offering a caddy 15%. Or is it just like a standard?
They could theoretically. I think the standard is 10%, and I think that's what most of the players do. But obviously, I'm pretty sure too when you win an event, you're supposed to give
the caddy
a little bit more. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, caddies are super interesting, and I mean that would be actually a sweet person to bring on. I know a couple of them on the PGA Tour, just to bring on and ask some questions, because their life is very interesting because it's so based on their player. If their player's playing well, or if maybe they get injured and stuff, their travel schedule, all that stuff. It's very interesting talking to some of them, but I think they're worth every bit of it. And you'll see guys too on tour when they have a good caddy that they like, they don't switch around.
Yeah.
They keep that guy with them, and there's a reason to that. And I think what you just said is 100% right, where you're like, you want to just like talk stuff out. Mm-hmm. I think when you're like on the bubble with something, like, should I go with this disc, or should I go with this disc, or should I try to hit that gap, or should I try to hit that gap? It's sometimes difficult for you to 100% commit to something. And I think when you have another voice, another person that you trust, say, hey, that gap, dude, you can hit it. Let's do it. I think that sometimes might give you just a little bit of a confidence boost that you need to just commit to shots. And I think you see that a lot of times in coverage, watching some people, is just, it's not so much that they don't have the skill. It's just sometimes they don't 100% commit to the shot. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's always like a question in the back of their head of, or you see players walk up with two discs.
I've had that, and it's And you shouldn't be walking. Yeah, I mean that. I shouldn't say you shouldn't be, because it's okay to not know what shot to throw, but that's where if you are walking up to a tee with two discs, that's where a caddy could totally help you.
Yeah, so I just pulled up Paul's stats to look at this, because I feel like Paul has pretty consistently been the highest paid out player as far as like his prize money year over year. And if you go from basically 2015 through 2019, the range is it looks like 45 to 72,000. So an average pretty close to 60. A few years in a row he hit 57. So I mean, if you're looking at a caddy, I mean, that's what, $5,000?
Yeah, it's not good.
So for a caddy to even be getting $30,000 a year, the payout has to increase by $250,000 to the best player. And that's to have one player paying a caddy $30,000. So at the current state of disc golf and the current payout, where we don't have outside money, we don't have the payout that, you really need to be supporting a caddy. It would almost be like Discraft has to bring on a caddy for Paul, or
Yeah, it'd have to be
something
like in
that.
a contract or something.
Yeah,
like that.
you get this much guaranteed plus X amount salary for a caddy / driver, or some type of role like that.
Or you find someone that's like a teacher or something where
During the summer
they have
they
have the summers off, and so they can go to these tournaments in the summertime.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, no one's quitting their day job for $5,000, $7,000.
No, but I do think that's something that as disc golf grows, that's something we're going to see in the sport. That and swing coaches. I think both of those, because there's times where
who would you say right now are like the biggest voices in like disc golf instruction?
There's not really any. I mean, players have done their own thing. Like Will Schustrick did the DGI disc golf instructions. Paul and Nate used to do a lot of clinics. I know like Infinite Disc used to host clinics at the Utah Open, and they would publish those online on YouTube. Drew Gibson has some pay form review type thing, but there's no person geared towards pros, if that makes sense. There's a lot of people that put out stuff for AMs. And like helping you develop your good form, but there's no one currently that is marketing themselves as a swing coach for pros. Because there's tournaments where Paul, I've been playing with him, and he's like, man, my timing's just off. I got to figure this out. Or man, my putter just doesn't feel right, and he eventually figures it out himself.
But it'd be way easier if someone
who just studied his form and knew his form and could immediately like even mid tournament be like, dude, you're missing your putts low because instead of coming down, you're coming back on your back foot. And so you're loading your back foot instead of loading straight down or something like that.
Whatever it may be, yeah.
Yeah. I think that those two things are things that as disc golf grows will be like crucial to helping a lot of players get to that next level.
Yeah, I mean there needs to be tiers of coaches, right? There needs to be the coaches that are with the top players, and then maybe they have a couple up and coming guys that they coach as well, and then there needs to be the almost like the local pro that is giving lessons and stuff to the amateurs. And I mean I would say that was a huge reason of how I got so good in golf so quickly. Going from I don't really know what my handicap was when I first started, but it was probably like low double digits, maybe something like that, and went all the way to I don't know if everyone I feel like a lot of people don't understand handicaps, but essentially I would shoot like on an average course, let's just say 10 over par.
So you're like 9-10 rated in disc golf.
Sure. And then I was able to start shooting like 2 or 3 under.
So 10-20.
Yeah. And
really roughly, but that's how the PDGA breaks it down.
In about 8 months.
Okay. So going from a 900 to over 1,000 rated player in 8 months.
Yeah.
And you're saying that was mainly because of like a
it was
swing coach?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I was practicing an insane amount and doing all that stuff that you need to do. But yeah, he would, going to him, he knew exactly what was going on and gave me building blocks to work with, and was able to really help me. Like any questions I had, like, hey, I just had this shot, super specific. Like I just had this shot. How do I do it? He would be able to help me with that. But more importantly, he was just able to help me get a more consistent swing, something that I could control, shape the ball, and do all that stuff. So, I know a lot of people have talked like, oh, you've gotten so good because you play with Paul and stuff. And I think a lot of that is me just being able to watch what he's doing and try to doing the same things. And then when he does give his little nuggets, like soak it up and try to do it. But right now, I think really the main reason why I've been able to improve is trial and error. Really, that's it. Like for me, throwing nose down with a forehand, I could not figure out how to do it for the longest time, and it finally took me. Here, I'll do it with this thing. But it finally took me to where I was throwing essentially like this, and now I basically just rotate my wrist, and I do that because I like to hold the disc kind of like vertical like this, and then I take it back and I throw it.
Kind of like how Paul brings it back and through.
And before I was kind of doing ultimate frisbee, and I wasn't really thinking too much of it, and like the nose down, I was like trying to get over top of it. But now I just before I go and throw, I go like that.
So just turning your wrist, forcing the nose kind of down with your wrist angle.
Exactly. I go like that, and now I hold it that way. And then when I go and drive it through, now I'm driving through nose down.
With nose down.
And it was a super easy thing, but it took me like 2 weeks of trial and error of throwing multiple times to finally get like, oh, I actually have to rotate my wrist this way, which is so weird and not comfortable for me coming from ultimate, where, you know, now that I know that, I could easily teach someone if they were having a hard time. I could probably tell them, hey, do this, and it might work for them. Like, just thinking about someone that's coaches disc golf and that's all they ever do, gosh, I feel like so much stuff. Like, even like today, like you basically told me how to do like a half bid from like 60 feet, you know? And just having someone to do that, I think would be crucial, and especially at tournaments too. Like if you have a bad day at a tournament, the last thing you should do is just go home and hope that you can sleep it off and wake up and play better tomorrow. Like that probably is not going to work most of the time, you know? When a golfer has a bad day, he's on the range. If it was ball striking, if it was putting, you know, he's on the green. If it was chipping, he's around the green. But like after his round, he's there.
Yeah.
And he's working out, trying to figure out what is it? How do I get it back? And I think that'll come with disc golf too, because right now I think we're at the show up, warm up, play, done. See you tomorrow. Where it probably should get to the point of where when your round's over, no one's going to have a perfect round.
Yeah.
So there's something that happened that you didn't do well. Mm-hmm. You should probably be working on that. Yeah, and that's what I'm going to do tomorrow, or not tomorrow, rather. Well, tournament. I guess tomorrow, because this podcast is recorded.
Oh, yeah.
So you're posting
when you're listening to this
tomorrow. When you're listening to this tomorrow on Friday. Yeah, after my round, regardless of whether I shoot super well or super bad, I'm probably going to either be doing field work or putting, just so that way I have a little bit more confidence going into the next day.
Yeah, like the players that I know for sure do that, and I have seen them do it at tournaments, are Paul, Ricky, Eagle, and
all those guys are pretty good,
I've seen a few others, but those 100% consistently, I've seen multiple times where Paul, I think it was, I forget what trip it was, but I was on a trip with Paul, and he just was not having a good tournament. And there was like 2 or 3 holes that were getting to him, and so he finished his round, you know, and then just straight back to those 3 holes and just played them. And I heard stories too of like different worlds where there was 1 or 2 holes that he just had his number that day, and he would go back and he was there till after dark playing those holes because he needed to figure it out before he got there tomorrow. And Ricky, there's numerous stories of Ricky. I feel like I forget who told me this the other day, but they said they showed up to the course at like 7 a.m. and Ricky was just putting. And then they went and played a full practice round, and they got back to the practice green, and Ricky was still putting. And they're like, I just played a full practice. Did you leave? He's like, oh, no, my putt just felt a little off, so I'm dialing it in.
Yeah.
That's the type of commitment that got Paul, got Ricky, and has gotten Eagle to where they are.
Yeah.
And just from the outside looking in, at different tournaments I'm going to, and just being a fan of the sport for years, I don't see it from a lot of players. I think that, and I'm curious to hear your perspective on, because you've made your goals pretty obvious. You're not in this to kind of just, you know, ride the wave, be at the low end of cashing and be happy. You're here to compete. Yeah. So I'm curious to hear your part of this, but I feel like disc golfers right now are, excluding the top guys and some of the rising talent, the middle crop is pretty happy with where they're at. And from what I've observed, their lifestyle, their practice routine is show up, play the course, learn the course a little bit, play the tournament, and then wherever I finish, I finish. I'm not too concerned with being the top of the top. There doesn't seem to be many players on tour right now with that kind of drive. But
that's all the fun stuff.
Yeah, they want to
That's all the stuff that's fun to do.
Yeah. But I want to know from your perspective coming in, it has pushing towards that top tier of players been harder than you expected in your first year so far? Or on the other side, has it been easier than you would think?
No, I think it's kind of right where I thought it was going to be, honestly. I mean, I think the lime knocked me back a little bit, which is frustrating because I felt like momentum was happening, and then that kind of jumped at me. But no, I think it's kind of honest. It's kind of what I expected. I feel like I'm not obviously where I want to be yet, but I keep gotta tell myself year one. I'm not even a year into disc golf, but the fact that I'm able to at least put some holes, and that's the big difference is I've put some holes. I've put some front nines. Like my front nine at DDO was probably like my best front nine I've had so far. There was stretches at D-Glow where I was 3 or 4 under with a handful of easy holes coming up where I could have easily shot 6 or 7 under for the round. I haven't put together a full round yet.
Yeah.
And even not putting together a full round, I still have put myself in a position where, I'm beating some people already. And, that definitely boosts my confidence, but I'm definitely not where I want to be yet. But I knew getting into disc golf and just kind of seeing where it was at, I knew that I could outwork a lot of people. And by doing that, I would be able to jump people quicker.
Yeah.
Where in golf, I'm not going to really outwork that many people. I mean, sure, I could outwork some, but there's hundreds, if not thousands, of people that are working just as hard as me, and they've been doing that for 5+ years.
Yeah.
10+ years. That was going to be a lot more of a, do I have the skill? Do I just have the ability to do it? And I feel like in disc golf, that's something I actually have, with my ultimate Frisbee background. I actually do have a lot of kind of skills already that can help me. But now it's like, can I just outwork people to get past them? But yeah, like you were talking about all the stuff that you see a lot of people do. That's the fun part.
Yeah.
Look at like your average amateur, for the most part, are they going to a field and doing not just throwing and seeing how far you can throw? Because I think that's what a lot of people think field work is just how far can I throw all my discs? Are they going to a field and actually working on angle control? Are they working on how it feels to throw a buzz at 70% versus 100%? How it feels to throw flex shots? All sorts of different things. Are they working on that, or are they simply just saying, can I throw over 400 feet?
Yeah. And
I think to be at the top of any sport, you have to work on the little stuff, and you have to work on the stuff that sucks, the stuff that people don't like to do. With Ultimate Frisbee, that was track workouts. Like even though I ran track in high school, I don't really like doing track workouts that much, especially when you're out of shape. And you're doing the mile warm up and you feel like puking on lap 2. You haven't even gotten into the actual work. But that's the stuff that creates champions. Doing that stuff is, the foundation of what it's going to take to actually win and be a champion. So I think the more the sport grows, the more players that come into it, I think those people are going to pass all those others that aren't working as hard, and those people that aren't currently working as hard, they have a decision to make. Do I want to be left behind, or do I want to push myself and try to be up there too?
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing that. Like, I think Eagle is a prime example. Obviously, I haven't been in the sport since this year, but I have been hearing from people and watching footage and hearing about his talent. Like, he has really good talent. And I think this is the first year that he really is starting to put a staple on. Like, no, I'm here. I'm ready. He's been. It seems like
it's not just talent anymore.
It seems like he's been putting in a lot of work behind the scenes when people aren't watching, and it pays off.
Yeah, for sure. One other thing that we've talked about before, and you coming into the sport looks a lot different than another player coming into the sport because of the name you already built for yourself. So I'm curious, let's take your name away. Mm-hmm. You have no social media, you have nothing, but you're the player you are today. You're coming into the sport, sponsorless, trying to make it on tour. If you're that player, what are you trying to do to survive on tour? Because payout, we've talked about payout a ton on this podcast. You're not surviving on payout. So if you're sponsorless,
unless you're getting in the top 5 consistently, top 10.
If you're sponsorless and you're trying to break out on tour, what would be, because I feel like you, outside of what you've already done with your name, I feel like puts you in a place where you can help people with this. How would you kind of coach someone on building their brand where they can make a living without having to rely on a tournament payout type of a thing? Where would you start?
I mean, social media obviously is the best place to go. And, I think people are drawn to, I would say people are probably drawn to the most, like, not realistic. What's the word I'm looking for?
Relatable?
Authentic.
Yeah.
Like authentic. Just letting people know what's going on, and showing your true self. I think that's probably and that's also the easiest thing. Like I'm so happy that I didn't get into YouTube and like make a different name for myself. Like, obviously Dark Horse is like my brand, a brand of mine, and like people, kind of goes hand to hand with Brodie and Dark Horse, whatever. But I didn't like start my YouTube channel as the Dark Horse, and no one knew my name was Brodie. And I put on like this act. To me, like YouTube is just like me when I'm like on. It's me. Like right now, obviously I'm not jumping off the wall, yelling or pumping my chest because we're doing a podcast. Why would I do that? But when like the YouTube, like I do that stuff. Yeah. Whether I'm, playing, whether the cameras are on me or not, I do that stuff. But like YouTube, it's just like I do it all the time. I think social media is a lot harder for people that put on a persona that's not them ever. Mm-hmm. Whether it's like, all right, I'm going to be this character or whatever. And they're never like that. It's way harder because then you feel like you always have to like put on an act to do stuff. So I would say be super authentic, let people know where you're at, where you're coming from, share your goals. What are you trying to accomplish? Because people love getting behind people to help them accomplish their goals. And then just, hopefully by you being yourself, you bring something to the table that people want to attach themselves to and follow. I mean, that at the end of the day is what you're trying to do. You're trying to inspire people. You're trying to make people happy. You're trying to bring something to someone's life that they wouldn't be able to find elsewhere, I guess you could say, or they go to you to find that. Yeah. If that makes sense. Not to say they wouldn't be able to find that elsewhere, because there's tons of people doing great stuff. But, if someone's having a bad day and they turn on my YouTube channel to watch a video to get, make their day a little bit better, that's awesome. I mean, or maybe it inspires them. That's the other cool thing, is inspiring people to go out and try disc golf. I think all those things are huge and crucial, and I don't think there's one right way of doing it. And at the end of the day, I think you got to do it yourself. I think something in disc golf that, there might be like a little bit of like a copycat situation going on in disc golf where, someone sees something work or be successful and then everyone just does it. And then it just like everything just kind of blends in and it's just kind of all the same. I mean, you can kind of, I don't know if we want to get into a hot topic, but you can get, look at people's like logos, for example. They're all kind of the same.
They're two initials blended together.
Kind of. They're all like the same. Yeah. Like, yeah. I don't know. I think it's okay to stand out, be different. Like, be yourself. That's the thing. We're all different. Not everyone's the same. And maybe at the end of the day too, something that I see sometimes a little bit is like everyone's like nervous to upset someone or like say something that like maybe some people will not like or whatever. And it's like, I don't think you can try to please everyone.
Yeah.
You know, you can't. People are there's going to be some people that are going to be upset. I'd much rather, for me personally, like I'd much rather have a fan base that knows who I am, supports me, and I can be myself, than trying to be someone I'm not to try to get everyone to like me, and then them not even really knowing who I am.
Yeah. Them liking just put the dark horse, but not the Brodie Smith.
Yeah, exactly. Like I want to be able to like have people come up to me and talk to me. Not right before I tee off, though. Let me say that. Not right before I tee off. But yeah, I want people to come up to me and talk to me. And you know, we've all heard horror stories of people like meeting their heroes or their you know biggest I don't know YouTuber, social media person. They're like and like being let down. Like, oh my gosh, that person sucked. I thought they were cool and they sucked. Like, I don't want that to happen. So I want like people to, when they come up and talk to me, like I'm just a normal dude.
Yeah. Their expectations are who you actually are.
Yeah. Let's talk.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit on people's opinions, right? And there's going to be negative feedback and stuff like that.
Yeah.
With you coming in disc golf, we've seen the positive. We've also seen a lot of negative response. Yeah. Which, you know, it's coming from, I think it's coming from a good place sometimes of you're getting a sponsor spot when you hadn't played a round and stuff like that. When people just didn't care that you had a social media following. They were coming from a good spot in the idea of they wanted you to prove it first, which I understand that. But, you know, I fully understand the marketing side and why you deserved what you got. It definitely sounded like a drum when you hit that.
Oops, sorry.
But what has been the overall response to the disc golf community from your eyes? Has it been in general positive and like a welcoming community, or has it been somewhat abrasive to you coming into it this year?
You know, you bring up something and we can actually maybe even talk about this in a second. Of like, I was talking to someone about this the other day. Disc golf community. What is that? When you say the disc golf community, what is that to you? Like, what is the definition of the disc golf community?
I think just like the players in general, people who...
Everyone that plays disc golf is in the disc golf community?
I would say everyone who just loves disc golf and plays it. That's what I'm talking about, the broad disc golf community. I think there's communities within disc golf.
Yeah, so is there an NBA or a basketball community?
To a certain degree. Like, it's something that...
Or a football community?
I think it's
like,
different.
Have you ever heard anyone say that, though? Like,
no.
Has anyone ever been like, yeah, the football community is just really backing this guy?
No. It's more fan base. In football and team sports, it's fan bases.
Well, I think it's just the smaller side of things.
Yeah. Because if I meet you and you know disc golf, we immediately can bond because...
It's small.
Yes. If I meet you and you know basketball, I'm not bonding with you over that until you say you like Duke.
Yeah.
Then we're bonding.
Yeah. So I think as disc golf grows, the idea of like everyone's, and maybe this is something that's scary for people. Maybe this was an issue with Ultimate with me a lot, is they wanted the sport to like stay small, which I was obviously against that. I wanted the sport to grow, and you know, I would love, like, when my kids grow up, I'm gonna talk to them about disc golf and Ultimate, and like give them the option of playing those sports, where I didn't have that option growing up. Yeah. It was basketball, football, soccer, tennis, golf. You know, those were the sports. Ultimate was never an option. So I want the opposite. I want it to grow, and I want like the disc golf community to kind of like disappear. Which I know might be like, I know there might be a lot of people being like, what are you talking about? But I want the sport to be so big to where you can't say.
There become sub-communities.
Yeah, there's sub-communities of like, when you say like, oh, my disc golf community, you're talking about like your local club, like the people that you play with or whatever. You're not talking about some dude across the country. And I think that's fine. And I think honestly that would make it cooler, because then, you're making it a sport that's big, hopefully get big enough to where, these small communities can thrive really. But, to answer your question, because I know that was kind of a tangent, but to answer your question, yeah, I think you had fans of mine that are going to support me no matter what. My ride or dies. When I started Twitch, they're over there. I suck at gaming. They're still watching. They're still supporting me. I go to golf. They're still watching. They're still supporting. I could start a painting channel and they would still watch and support. And those are those are the people that I will ever be grateful for, because I know that I'm always able to pursue what I'm passionate about and never have to worry about what people are going to think. And then I would say you have the fans that are kind of on the fence. The guys that were like, I play ultimate frisbee, what the heck are you doing? Or the golfers, a lot of golf people were like, gosh, I keep hitting this thing. Sorry. A lot of the golf people being like, go back to golf. What is going on? Oh, wait, what, disc golf? What? And those were the people that, like, once they kind of saw it, and I think you can tell from my content, like, I'm actually passionate about it. I think a lot of the people that are like saying these comments of like, oh, Brodie's just going to play for like a year and then he's going to be gone. Those people don't watch my videos. They don't listen to what I have to say. They're just words in the wind.
Yeah.
They just want to be heard and go off. Because if you actually watch, you can see I'm passionate about this. And, the passion I had in ultimate frisbee, the passion that I had in golf is here now in disc golf. And, it's not going to go anywhere. And so I think that changed a lot of those people's minds. And then, I would say the small amount of people that are upset with whatever I do kind of goes back to like, you can't please everyone.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, there's going to be someone that's going to be upset. And, unfortunately, those are the people that like to wake up on the wrong side of the bed. And those are the people that when something doesn't go their way, they want to blame everything else instead of looking at, well, what did I do to cause this? I can't help those people. Other than all I can do is, pray that, they find something to be able to change their life, because that life sucks. I've been there before and it sucks. Like being nasty, hateful, turning to that always versus trying to see the good in everything. It's not a fun life.
Yeah.
And until you can get out of that rut, you're kind of just headed in the wrong direction.
Yeah, for sure. I was just always curious about that because, as you've kind of joined Foundation and more of our content and stuff like that, those comments have just started coming, not directed towards Foundation. There's always been comments hated towards Foundation. And when it's hated towards me, that's easy because, it's like, I think when it's directed towards you, you take it a lot different than when someone makes a hateful comment towards you as like a friend or towards Paul. I always read that. I'm like, geez, like that's just ruthless. Like what?
Yeah.
And so I was just curious your perspective, because my perspective when I came into disc golf, it took me years to find a mean disc golfer until I got into social media. When I got into, then all the mean disc golfers kind of came out. But and when it just came being on the course, wanting to learn, there's a pitch and putt near me that a blind guy could go out and shoot 7 under. Super easy course.
Yeah.
If you're throwing 100 feet, you can birdie holes. I was shooting like 10 over when I first started. And I went to a weekly, and I was welcomed with open arms. They showed me, people helped me. They gave me advice like, why are you throwing this disc? You should try this disc. You should do whatever. And that made me fall in love with the sport so much, because the basketball community that I was a part of, where like some of my local teams and stuff were super cliquish, and it was hard even within the team to break into some of these cliques, to where even if I was a starter on a team, whether it be AAU or high school or whatever it is, I might not feel a part of that team. In disc golf, I never felt that. And so I was wondering with you if that was the same type of community.
It's more of an individual sport too, which helps.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you're right. anyone that's played team sports knows that sometimes it's very difficult, especially going on to a new team, to like, if there have been other guys on that team before, to like break into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think having the individual aspect of disc golf definitely helps with that. And yeah, I mean, I think for the most part, I think most people want to help others, which is great. I think you see that in other sports as well that are like individual. Surfing, you see that. Skateboarding, you see that. Where, you know, people will just come up, you know, if you're trying to do a skateboard trick or something, there might be someone there that literally just comes up, doesn't even know who you are, and like, hey man, I see you're grinding over here. Try this. This might help you. Yeah. And I think those individual sports allow a lot of that, where in a team, like, you're never going to go to another team,
and be like
another team, be like, hey, I see you guys really struggling with this. I think this would actually help you a lot.
Yeah.
So that is the cool thing about disc golf. And like you said too, like, I never met a mean disc golfer until I saw social media. Like, there's people that suck in every sport. I've played every sport, and like, one of my least favorite things from the Ultimate Frisbee days were just how Ultimate Frisbee people claim to be the best. Our sport's the best. We have the best people. We follow the spirit of the game, all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, there's people in Ultimate Frisbee that absolutely suck, that I would not want to have a friendship with, or, you know, I would see them and be nice to them, but like, I'm not trying to hang out with that person. I don't have anything in common with that person. I think that's in every sport. I think you gotta get rid of that mentality of like, oh, all disc golfers are awesome people. No, they're not. Yeah. There's some people that aren't great, and there's some people that are awesome. But I don't think that should really have an impact of whether or not a sport is awesome. Yeah. You know, like golf, for example. Golf for the longest time were super snooty. And I think it's starting to slowly go away. Ultimate Frisbee for the longest time was a pot smoker, like, hippie sport. And that is slowly kind of fading away. Like, the type of people that play your sport shouldn't define the sport. The sport should define itself. Yeah. And if a group of people want to take a sport a different way, I don't think that should be a negative or a positive or whatever. Like, it is what it is. If a handful of people want to do something and try to go off and do their own thing, I think that should be okay. I don't think anyone really owns a sport. Yeah. And basically is like, no, this is the only way of playing the sport, or this is the only way you can act doing this sport.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's a lot of my like things that I talk about. I'm just talking about the pros. Yeah. Like, absolutely. I think that's what the pros should be doing. I'm not talking about you should have to wear a collared shirt going to your local course. Yeah. To play disc golf by yourself. That's silly.
Yeah. For sure. And I think as far as like owning the sport type of a thing, one thing that the more I've done this podcast and the more I've talked with Trevor, or whether it be you on or Paul, and we have all these different ideas of like, what can we do as a sport? The more I've realized that with how fast disc golf's growing and the state of disc golf currently, it's almost like the Pro Tour to a certain degree owns the sport. To a certain degree, because the decisions they're making now and the decisions they're going to make in the next 5 to 10 years defines our sport for quite a while, because they are, at this point, and at least in my mind, they are the tour. They're the tour players seem to be prioritizing. They're the tour that they're putting out consistently good media, stuff like that, to where they kind of are steering the ship that is disc golf right now. So one thing that all players I've ever met can agree with is disc golf needs outside sponsorships. And we've seen you recently in a few different videos working with DraftKings and stuff like that. So first off, like, with those sponsorships, was there any pushback when you're getting those brand deals on, hey, this is going to be in a disc golf video?
They just care about views.
So they couldn't care less. So then if you're talking to the Pro Tour, what is your advice on getting someone like DraftKings to sponsor?
Get more views.
So what do we do?
Yeah. I think we've talked about this a little bit of where I think some of their content shouldn't be behind the paywall.
Yeah.
I think they should start doing stuff that is like, I get why they have the paywall, right? It's expensive. They don't really have any sponsors, so they have to find a way of paying for it. And right now, to pay for it, we kind of have to pay to get it, right?
Yeah.
But something that they could do that the PGA Tour does that's really, really awesome is have the first 6 holes free every day. So the first 30 minutes is free. You're invested, you're seeing it, and as minute 25 comes up, you get, Jamie or Nate or whoever to be like, hey, just letting you guys know, 5 minutes, the coverage will, no longer be free. Make sure you go over to Disc Golf Pro Tour and get a subscription to continue to watch the action.
Yeah.
And then boom, 30 minutes goes. All right, guys, see you later for all the free viewers. If you want to continue to watch, get a subscription, Disc Golf Pro Tour. And then continue running it like you would normally run it. That is going to, honestly, that's going to convert a lot of people because you're going to have people. I mean, what sporting event would you watch? And then literally if there was like in the middle of the sporting event, be like, burp, you have to pay $1 to watch the rest. We probably would pay the $1.
Yeah.
If we were entertained, if it was a good product, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think the Disc Golf Pro Tour product is solid. I've been pretty impressed with it. I think they can still do some things differently, but for what it is, it's pretty solid for what you pay for. So I think that is huge because I think getting just more people involved and more people watching. But I think the other thing is you have to, I think, create more stories. There needs to be more stories talked about players. There needs to be, we can go crazy tangent too, and we can say like I think the tour needs to be way smaller.
Yeah, we've talked about that tons on this podcast.
Way smaller. I mean, when skateboarding was just trying to get big, how many professional skateboarders would be at an event?
No clue.
I don't either. But I bet it's not over 100.
No.
I bet it was maybe less than 50.
Well, yeah, but I feel like a skateboarding event is a different story. Like 50 skateboarders might be.
What about a surfing event? How are those different than disc golf? They're all individual events.
Yeah, but disc golf, you have 18 holes to fill. Skateboarding, you have one skate park.
You don't have to have someone on each hole. Like when the day starts, there's 18 holes or 17 holes that no one's on.
Yeah, but you're having 4 people at a time is what I'm saying. Versus skateboarding, you have one person doing their run.
Yeah.
In a skate park. So if they run all day, if they run the same hours at disc golf, they're going to have 4 disc golf can have 4 times more players, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
If a skateboarder runs 10 minutes and there's 10 minutes in between cards, you're getting 4 more players.
I don't think it needs to be like how many people can you get in a certain amount of time though.
Well, I'm just saying I don't know.
March Madness, there's 64 teams.
Yeah.
There's not 150 teams.
No. Yeah, I mean I think looking at
saying, like if you lower how many people are on tour, right? I think that changes a lot of things where you can have like right now if you went to some random disc golf course and there was someone playing and you walked up to them and you asked them name as many disc golfer pros that you know. The average disc golfer, right? Mm-hmm. What names are they coming up with?
Well, I mean, they're probably going to have 5 to 10. It's going to be Paul, Big Germ, Nate Sexton.
So there's
Ricky.
There's a handful, right?
Yeah,
and if you literally said, I don't know who, I don't want to call out anyone's names really, but if I look up what was the last tournament? Mid America
Open.
Mid America Open. So if I look up this tournament and kind of just like name off some names that in the top 10, right? Guys that literally finished in the top 10. Oh, this is 2019. Whatever. I'm going to use it. I don't care. 2019, you got Emerson Keith.
Okay.
Some people probably recognize him. Zachariah Johnson.
Hit or miss.
I know him, but some people might.
Yeah.
Joel Freeman got third.
Yeah.
Alex Russell.
Mm-hmm.
Gavin Rathburn.
Mm-hmm.
Nico.
Yep.
Andrew Presnell. Jake Lauber. Ron Converse. I mean, obviously this is a smaller tournament, but the idea, I think, what I'm trying to get to is I think if you lower the number of pros, first off, it's way easier from a marketing standpoint to market all those people because there's way less people.
Yeah.
It's way easier to create storylines because there's way less people, so you can focus a lot more on individuals. The money goes up, obviously, like purse goes way up. And then the other thing is just like the fans watching, they're going to be able to know basically all those people.
Yeah.
They should at least be able to know the 25 people that are on tour, the whatever.
Yeah. Now, when you say the purse goes up, you said the purse goes up, obviously.
Uh-huh.
By cutting the field and losing the entry fees of, let's say the field right now is probably, average 140 players, something like that. If we cut that to 100, so we cut 40. Do you think that affects like when you say purse, are you talking about just payout or are you saying total purse? Because the total purse has to go down. If there's 40 people, that's like 40 and you're paying 200 per thing.
Yeah.
So $8 grand.
$8,000.
Yeah. So there goes $8,000 out of the purse.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying the payout, like the top players taking home more with those 40 gone, or what do you mean by the purse goes up?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, I guess it would. I guess instead of the purse going up, I think I should have said like the money that the top players get would go up because they're paying out less people.
So you break up the payout percentage instead of being 40% to 20%.
Yeah, something like that, along those lines. But again, like I think the main thing is like if most of the money that is coming into these tournaments is from the players themselves, I think we all want to get away from playing poker with our friends because that's essentially what's kind of happening.
Yeah.
Everyone's showing up at whoever's house. We're all putting $100 on the table, and we're like, all right, winner takes $3,000.
Yeah.
Second place gets this. Blah, blah, blah. And 20th place gets their money back. That's essentially what we're doing right now. I think we want to kind of get away from that where, gosh, I feel like last time I was on this podcast, I was wondering if PGA guys or surfers or skateboarders, wherever, any individual sport, if they actually paid to get into tournaments. If they actually paid. Or once you're
at the tour level?
Yeah, or if once you're on tour, you actually like. There's no.
I feel like I've heard
like
golf.
Are there?
For some reason, I think there's the PGA Tour has like a set entry fee, but I think it's like covering green fees and.
You think so?
I feel like I read that. I don't want to be
the
quoted
only
on
expense.
That.
Okay, how much does a professional golfer pay to play in a tournament? The only expense he must pay to play in a tournament is a mandatory $50 locker room fee. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Most professionals competing in a pre-tournament qualifying event pay entry fees. Okay. That's it.
So a $50 locker fee.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which makes sense because you're paying basically at that point you're paying like the staff to help your make that locker room clean and whatever. You're not really paying that $50 isn't going into the pot.
Purse. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they're paying. I mean,
they're paying nothing to the tournament.
Correct.
From what it looks like on a 5-second Google search.
5-second Google search. That's what it looks like. And it makes sense. Like, if I'm Kelly Slater, like, am I really paying money to be in an event? No, that event wants me to be there. Yeah. The heck? Could you imagine like Tiger Woods being like, hey, I want to play this event. And they're like, all right, man, it's $750 entry fee. That would be the worst tournament director of all time. Yeah. So, but that's what we have to do right now because, like you said,
that's where the only place money can come from.
So, outside sponsorships, we need more views. Like, Plain and simple.
So
you need to get more views.
Blanket statement, and because I know ins and outs of this, it gets complicated, but is the pay-per-view structure bad for disc golf right now?
I think it's the only way right now for us to get footage. I think it's the only way. Now, I think what could happen is you could have someone that, kind of goes like the AUDL route, which is the professional league, the semi-pro league, and Ultimate Frisbee, where you get big-time investors that just take all the upfront costs and hope it takes off and they get their returns down the road, and so they make it free. But I think it's just interesting because it's not that far away. I mean, we've talked a little bit about just like how podcasts work and how sponsors look at podcasts and how many views, you can get a sponsor on your podcast for like 500 views.
Yeah.
Right now, obviously, that's pretty much chump change, but once you start getting to like 15,000, 20,000, 25,000, the money gets a little bit better. So it's not like the views aren't insane to get people's attention, but you have to almost, I would say if your views aren't insane amount, you almost have to do all the work for them, if that makes sense. Like you can't just like come to someone like Gatorade and be like, hey, do you want to sponsor a tournament?
Yeah.
And then be like, what? Like you need to be having everything planned out of what you're going to do. And I think instead of tournament based, I think the Disc Golf Pro Tour needs to find a like title sponsor for the tour.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
so like that's the FedEx Tour type of a thing.
Yeah. I think they need to find someone that is interested in getting into a new market, because the disc golf market is a great market. It's a great market to get into. You have people that not only are diehard fans and are going to be paying attention to what's going on, but I feel like for the most part, the people I've talked to are pretty knowledgeable of what's going on. And you've got people that are going outside.
Yeah.
They're willing to spend money on things that, disc golf related. And, I think someone out there has a real good opportunity of getting in with the disc golf crew.
Yeah.
The disc golf sport. Because I think whoever decides to like, hey, give disc golf a chance, I think all the disc golf fans out there would be like very grateful and understanding like this is this big deal.
Yeah.
And I think
we saw that with Adidas when Adidas Terex came in.
Yeah.
Like go to a course at a tournament and just look at people's shoes. They're all Adidas. Pretty much if you're looking at, I would almost say, maybe this is just my area, but I would almost say 80 to 90% of players that take the sport serious are playing in Adidas, some type of Adidas trail running shoe.
Yeah.
And
how hard would it be for like a Reebok to come in, like theoretically, Reebok come in, say, hey, we're going to be the title sponsor, make a specific disc golf shoe, and then also on top of that, sponsor like the top 10 guys, top 10 females and top 10 males, and they're all wearing the shoe. That 80% that you said, how many of those people now switch over?
No, that's the hard thing, is because shoes were already done. So, because it went from.
But if that actually happened right now?
Right now, that's why I don't know, because everyone loves Adidas.
But you don't think people would switch?
People would. I would.
Yeah.
Because I would switch just to support Reebok. They could be ugly. I wouldn't care.
But I think it's a huge thing. Like people are drawn. You got to think too of all the new players coming in.
Yes.
What are they going to do? They're going to look at what do the top players wear.
Well, I think that's the opportunity that was missed. Was Adidas was someone great to bring in, but they're a weird company because they operate. Adidas Terex operates separate from Adidas. So it was like disc golf was sponsored by the side company, and so we never, even though it sounded great, like we have Adidas as a sponsor at a lot of events, a lot of players, it wasn't really Adidas. It was this.
And were they paying?
Were they paying players?
Uh-huh.
Not that I know of.
Or playing tournaments?
I think it was more just a shoe and
Just
discount
being connected?
code. Yeah, because I think from what I understood, anything that was money related needed to run through the actual Adidas, the head Adidas, and disc golf wasn't on their radar.
This was a way of them kind of going side door.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, we can just do it through the tags and we do it.
Yeah. So that's where I think if someone like Callaway or Nike or personally Under Armour, because I think Under Armour
is fire.
Or North Face, something like that. I think if one of them came in a clothing thing and they released a line of polos,
performance shirts and
for disc
shorts
golf.
and stuff, yeah.
Where this is
the hoodie that fits the that has a pocket that
like
fits
what
the
dude
disc
tried
perfectly.
to do, but on a big scale where it can be, you can actually buy it.
Yeah,
you're not paying $200.
Yeah,
but I think if someone did something like that, or even just designing something as simple as designing, golf shorts and polos that are meant to stretch the way a disc golfer stretches versus the way a golfer stretches, stuff like that. I think then you would see a disc golf community rally behind, because it's not something that's already competitive like a shoe, where beforehand people were just playing in running shoes pretty much. The Paul introduced the world.
There's still some people playing in those.
Oh yeah, but Paul introduced the world to the Adidas Swifts, and literally within a month, everyone and their mom was wearing Adidas Swifts on the course, and everyone was like, how the heck did I play without these? Because you actually had grip. They were waterproof. It changed.
Yeah, the waterproof is
it changed the game in so many ways.
Game changer.
And all it took was a company to take a little bit of a risk. And I mean, for Adidas, what were they risking? Nothing. They just sent players some shoes.
Yeah.
It's
a win-win for
if
them.
It started with Callaway.
That's what a lot of marketing companies do. A lot of marketing companies will just reach out to people, be like, "Hey, can we send you free stuff? You just post on your social media."
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, "Heck yeah."
Well,
I do have another thing about sponsors, or not sponsors, but increasing the purse. But
go for it.
Do you want me to go there, or you want?
I was just gonna say, like, even if Callaway or Nike or someone just came in and said, we're going to do a merch sponsorship to test the field with the Pro Tour. Let's just not even say players. Let's say the Pro Tour. And we're going to become the official polo of the Pro Tour.
Dirty.
And then just test the field. What are they risking? Like nothing.
Just time and money.
Yeah, but like
not that much money, but yeah.
And I feel like the return
just be time.
The return, if the issue is they're just not in disc golf, so they can't see the potential return. But all it's going to take is one company to take that chance, dive in.
It's the Reebok of CrossFit.
See the return, and then every other company is going to be like, all right, it's time. And that's
Reebok at UFC.
Yeah, and that's when I think we're going to see some explosive growth. It's just the question of what's the company.
Yeah.
Who has the connection.
Disc golf needs to get a little bit bigger, though. Just needs to get a little bit bigger, because right now I don't think it's big enough for someone that wants to take that chance to be able to go and tell their boss, hey,
let's take
this is what we want to do. And the boss be like, okay. I think it's got to get a little bit bigger, so that crazy person's that's like, bro, I've got this crazy idea.
Yeah.
Disc golf. And the boss be like, what? And then they be able to back it up with
statistics and
that are a little bit more impressive than what we have now. Yeah. But so before I forget, money. I think Disc Golf Pro Tour needs to start selling their media rights.
Do they not right now to a certain degree?
No, I think they actually pay.
Oh, like you're telling Jomez, Central Coast. I know for us.
I know if those people are listening or watching, they probably don't want to hear that. And if you're a huge fan of those people, you probably don't want to hear this. But I think that is something that a lot of sports... That's how a lot of sports make tons and tons of money off of, is selling the media rights. Is CBS going to show it? Is Fox going to show it? Is ESPN going to show it? Who's going to TNT, whatever? Those broadcast companies pay top dollar to be able to have that. I mean, March Madness is huge.
Yeah.
Super Bowl, all these things. These people pay tons of money to show it. I think right now we're paying these companies, not we, but from what I've heard, I think either the Pro Tour or the sponsor of the tournament So like Innova, Discraft, whoever, I think they're paying
to get the
for these
main
people to
coverage
come
out there.
film. And my question is, if you didn't pay them, would they still come film? Because if they weren't filming the big tournaments, what would they be filming? They would just go film tiny tournaments?
Yeah.
No. Or someone that is willing to pay and realize that they can make the money back, like all these other, because think about it, like, and again, this isn't a knock on these guys, because I know all these broadcast companies, all these production companies that do disc golf, they all started when everyone was probably like, this is insane, what are you doing? And they probably took tons and tons of risk.
Yeah.
But I think disc golf is getting to the point now where I think it's okay to make a little bit of a switch.
Yeah.
Because let's say me and you start a production company and we want to start doing the feature card of whatever tournament, right? And we're going to be able to get, let's say, 50 or 60,000 YouTube views of that, and we sell media or we sell sponsored deals on our coverage. None of that money goes back to the players.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
I'm not missing that. We're putting all that money in our pockets.
Correct. Oh, but I do think the Pro Tour is changing this, because of being at this tournament.
What do you mean they're changing it? What do you mean?
Changing, not money going to the players' pockets, but changing. I don't know for certain that the Pro Tour is paying companies anymore for media rights.
Okay.
I think it might be starting to shift the other way.
I heard from someone at Discraft that they pay for them to come out to film. I don't know.
Maybe for the big ones still, but I know that what I'm saying is shifting is because Foundation had to pay to be here this week. And so we had to pay per tournament, per round, and then per subscribers on YouTube. So
what does that mean? Subscribers?
It's tiered. So once you
So the more subscribers, the more you have to pay?
Correct.
Wow. Okay.
So
they are starting to do it.
Yes.
But are they doing that?
That's why it was
Are
important.
they doing that for production though?
That's why I don't know. Well, I think if I was a Joe Schmo starting it up, yes. But I think for the ones that are established and they already have contracts with, maybe not. But that's why it was important. It was important coming into the week to know, was I coming into this week filming any videos for your channel? Because that drastically changed what I was paying to the Pro Tour. Because am I dropping it on a $30,000 subscriber channel, or am I dropping it on a 2.2 million subscriber channel?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that gear is, the tides are turning in that
That's
direction. Good. Whether it's turning for the top tier production yet, I don't know. But the fact that they're already putting that into place lower, I feel like it's, the clock's ticking to where next season it might be something where they're implementing that. Yeah,
because I'm just gonna use Jomez because they're the biggest. But imagine if, let's say Jomez, they're gonna film 4 rounds, or they're gonna film 3 rounds, 6 videos.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say each video. Do they put ads on their videos, like YouTube ads?
If they do, it's only before. I think they
don't have mid-roll ads.
I don't think they have mid-roll because
they have sponsors.
They have sponsored mid-rolls,
which they probably make more money off of than YouTube.
I would imagine, or they wouldn't have made that decision.
They wouldn't do it, right? So they do have YouTube before, though.
I feel like they do. To be honest with you, I haven't paid attention to their monetization when I'm watching.
Okay. So let's just theoretically say they do. Okay. So each video, let's say on average, gets 100,000 views over the course of however many, which I think is fair because if you look at some of their videos from these past tournaments.
Yeah, if we go average, I think 100,000 is maybe even on the low side.
Per video. So that means 100,000 with only one ad on YouTube. Well, let's just say if they had multiple ads throughout 100,000, they're probably... I mean, they could make anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per video.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just go on the low side, $1,000. Okay, and then let's say on top of that, well, let's actually go to $2,000 because why would they go with YouTube if they were getting these other sponsors?
Yeah.
So let's say they're getting $2,000 per video. That means for all 6 videos, they're making $12,000. Plus all the money they're making from Patreon.
Yeah.
Right? Which is a lot.
That's a huge one, yeah.
Which is a lot of money. Could even be close to the 12,000. Honestly, it actually might even be more. Who knows? But let's just round up to 20.
Okay.
They're making $20,000 per tournament. Now, the question is, should all $20,000 go to Jomez?
I mean, my answer is yes.
Okay.
Because if
so we're at, but that's with the idea that they're not paying any money to film.
Yeah. I mean, I think in an ideal world they're paying the Pro Tour for the right to be there, and that
how much? That would be
I think
the question.
flip the script. Whatever Pro Tour is paying them right now. I think that the Pro Tour model is working, or that for the low tier. I think if you apply that to the top tier, it makes sense. A fixed amount per subscriber, so then as the channel grows and as the sport grows, the money coming into the tournament grows, and then I was
just thinking, like, if you just said like $5,000, that could be $5,000 that you could literally just put right towards like the top payout system.
Yeah.
And that would change things drastically, I think.
Yeah.
So instead of winning a tournament and getting 3,000, you're getting 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And then second place is going home with
3,
considerably more. Yeah. It's just an interesting thing to think about, and that's just with Jomez. That's not
counting Central
That's
Coast,
not even counting all these other. Yeah,
GK.
you go 5,000 with that person. This person does 2,500. Now all of a sudden you just added 10,000
to the pro purse
without even having an outside sponsorship.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think
it's something to think about. I don't know what is going on or what's happening, but I just know in every other sport, media rights is paid for, and I know you're saying like the subscription thing. Is this what we should be doing right now? And it seems kind of like you're paying for a subscription to watch it, but then also other people are making tons of money as well. It just seems like a lot of money is going
different directions
versus going all back into the purse.
I think,
which I think is what at the end of the day is going to be the most important thing, is getting the purse as high as possible.
I agree. If the Pro Tour wants this pay-per-view model to work, to me, you've got to make the next day coverage has got to go away. Post-produced. Not post-produced in general has got to go away. I think it's got to be phased out, personally.
That's a good opinion, actually.
I don't understand. You can't name another major sport that post-produce is the main way people consume content. And people will talk about, I'm not sitting down to watch 4 hours of disc golf, or it happens during my workday. So does golf, but golf doesn't have post-produced, and there's a reason. Because if you want people to pay per view, if like this model, the post-produce is killing it. Because the first round is the only round that Jomez isn't covering the same card.
Well, there's no reason either that you can't, like, if you don't want to watch a 4-hour round, right? Mm-hmm. If that's your reason why you don't want post-produced, that's the reason why you don't watch live, just wait. If you want, just wait until the video goes up, like the broadcast goes up, and then you just fast forward. I mean, that's what people do in golf tournaments. If they are like that, they'll record it and then skip through.
Yeah. I mean, I think if it was up to me, if I was making all the decisions for the Pro Tour right now, I would say next year, next day coverage is gone.
It's gone.
And we're going...
Hold it like a week?
Yeah, a week. Start it there. Start it a week. So then, if people really care about... They really just want to watch their post-produced, you're still going to get it. But if you want to watch it in the moment when it's relevant, the only way to do so is through the Pro Tour.
And it just makes so much more sense too, just because, like, if you're listening to this podcast, for example, if you don't watch live, a lot of the stuff that you guys might be talking about, people are going to be lost. Yeah, you're gonna be feel like you're left out because you don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
it's gonna make people be more interested in watching the live coverage, versus right now they have the option.
Yeah,
live coverage or watch the next day.
And people are going to choose the next day. Because
Yeah.
why wouldn't you? It's 30 minutes, and you can watch the full round. So, like...
And think about if you could get...
And it's free.
Because I
Sorry,
think
that's the big one. It's free.
Yeah. I would say, like, most of the 100,000 views on YouTube that, like, these people get, or, like, what... You just put up a practice round of mine on Foundation. How many views? That came out today?
It came out...
Well, I guess yesterday.
Early this morning.
Based off of the podcast.
Yeah, it came out early this morning.
It has how many?
30-some thousand.
30. Okay, so those are probably all unique. I doubt people are watching that twice already.
Yeah.
So 30-some thousand are watching a practice round. That's more than... I'm pretty sure that's more than any live...
Yeah, the live record is 17,000.
So it's almost double the live record.
Yeah.
If our goal is to try to make this thing look the most marketable to outside sponsors, we got to be throwing everything into one spot versus Central Coast, Jomez, Live, Disc Golf Pro Tour Live.
And you have all these stats.
Yeah. Throw everything. Like, how many people would tune in if everything was just one spot? Like, the only way to watch it is...
Yeah.
Could we get 75,000 people watching?
Possibly.
Could
There's
be.
the viewers are there. It's just the question of...
Yeah.
And I think one of the keys...
Now you have a product. Now you say, hey, we have something that every single time we go live, we're having 75,000 people tune in.
Yeah.
Do you want to do something with that?
And that's going to be a lot more appealing to...
Then, hey, we have 18 here. We've got 25 over here.
Yeah, it's the same thing as having two
here.
different tours. It's going to be confusing to an outside sponsor of... Do I sponsor the Jomez footage? Do I sponsor the Central Coast footage? Do I sponsor the Pro Tour footage? Do I sponsor all of them? How do I pick? Because there's all these different things, and if I'm outside looking in, it makes no sense. I think that's the biggest thing. If you're in disc golf, it makes sense because it's always been that way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the outside looking in, having a national tour and a pro tour makes no sense. Having all these different channels that people are watching and consuming coverage doesn't really make sense. Of the same tournament.
Because think about the advertising dollars too. The advertising dollars right now are getting spread out.
Yeah.
Right? Because let's say a Discraft tournament, Discraft is probably paying Jomez to be having ads in there. They're paying the Disc Golf Pro Tour, obviously. And they're paying, let's say Central Coast is there. They're paying them as well. Instead of only one way of consuming it, there's one thing. They're going to pay that one thing, and
the total of everything.
The value is going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, it seems like a no-brainer. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that probably aren't too happy with this idea, but at the end of the day, I'm just trying to figure out ways or, throw things out there. I'm a big, huge fan of, like, you just throw a bunch of stuff out there until something sticks. Heck, yeah. I made a career out of throwing a Frisbee into a trash can. That should tell you that sometimes, like, a crazy idea, it works.
Yeah.
And I think, instead of just shutting down every idea and be like, no, we're not going to do that. No, we're not going to do that. No, we're not going to do that. Like, just trying things in small ways. Like, I don't think, like, what you're saying, I don't think the Pro Tour should be like, hey, next year, this is what's happening. I think that's a bad idea. I think they should say, hey, this tournament, this is how we're going to do it.
We're going to try it out.
We're going to try it.
I see what you're
because saying. If it blows up and it's absolutely a nightmare,
be able to change it back next tournament.
Next week, we're going back to what we were doing.
Yeah.
But at least try something to see, because maybe it'll take off, and then who knows, maybe you got something there.
Yeah. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We went a little bit longer than normal, but the conversation just flowed that way. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe here to check out different clips from past podcasts, or this is also where you can find the video of other podcasts, or if you're listening on audio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you find our podcast, please leave a review if possible. Let us know if you like it, hate it, whatever it is about it. We read pretty much all of them and take the feedback to heart, and we really appreciate it. I think that's about it. Go check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Discord for sure. We're pretty active in there. And check out our Patreon as well. Other than that, guys, we will talk to you next week.